Hey everybody, it's Val from Autistic Interpretations. It's time for another Q&A. In today's Q&A, I'm going to talk about how I felt when Jessica got her autism diagnosis. So I'm Jessica's mom. Jessica is 35 years old this year, and it's been a long journey, and it feels like diagnosis was a different lifetime ago. But somebody recently asked this question: how did I feel when Jessica got her diagnosis? Was I sad? Was I relieved? Did I question, did I do something? So that's what I'm going to talk about here. I wanted to point out simply that Jessica was born in the 80s. She was a late 80s baby, and autism wasn't a well-known thing. A lot of people had never heard of it. A lot of people were not aware of it. And we weren't. I mean, it wasn't something that I had ever heard of until the movie Rain Man came out. And then that was my only connection to it for a very long time, was just that. And so when we first got the first hint of a suspicion, we had to educate ourselves. What is autism? What does it mean? What are the signs and symptoms? And sure enough, really early on, we recognized within the literature of signs and symptoms that she had many of them. So I think from very early on, even before diagnosis, we felt confident that that she was autistic. Jessica was 3 when we first had somebody ask about autism. It took 2 years to get Jessica's first evaluation for autism. And there was not a good outcome from that evaluation. We got some information, such as that's when we learned that she was having seizures. At the time, she was having what was called pedimol seizures. It took another 2 years to get our second evaluation, which was an independent evaluation that we sought out. That evaluation was with a pediatric neuropsychologist. So that was it was a 4-year window of time between when we first heard the word to we got the diagnosis. Even though it took from 3 to 5 to get her first evaluation and from 5 to 7 to get her second evaluation, we never doubted that she was autistic from the first moment we started researching and reading literature. When we finally got the diagnosis, it was really old news. We wanted the diagnosis for a tool to get appropriate services at school, and that was why we kept on pushing and seeking out an official diagnosis. When it finally came, it wasn't shocking. It wasn't surprising. It was very validating. That would be the best word for it, is validating. We thought, naively, that getting the diagnosis would open doors, would open up opportunities in the school system, would help us better create an appropriate setting for her in school, get an appropriate teacher, get an appropriate whatever, and that never happened. Actually, the school superintendent at the time told my mother something to the effect, he didn't care what diagnosis we got. He didn't have to do anything, and he wasn't going to. So that was kind of what we were up against way back then. That was in the early 90s. In terms of, did I ever question myself? So for the most part, I will answer no. I did not question self, because when Jessica got her first diagnosis, which was blindness, she was 6 months old. And I can't remember if she saw neurology way back then, or if we didn't see neurology until later. Like I say, it's been a long time ago. But a neurologist told me that Jessica had a stroke in utero, and that was what had caused her brain malformation. Issues with the brain, as in malformation or whatever, is a known factor in autism and has been So she didn't fit the case where you have what appears to be a typically developing child, and then there's a sudden regression, or that she loses language or anything like that. That just wasn't how it presented itself with her. So I never really had to wonder what happened, because I knew she was born this way. We had evidence as early as 5 months old that she has a brain malformation. She had hydrocephalus. She probably had damage in her brain from the hydrocephalus in addition to the brain malformation. So the cause is evident. So never questioned the cause of autism, or if it was something that I did. I would say there have been times in my life where I questioned if something I did caused the stroke. For example, in my first trimester of pregnancy, I got really sick, and I don't mean from morning sickness. I got a really bad virus, vomiting, the poops, lost about 6 pounds in a week. So sick, couldn't eat, so sick. But every evaluation Jess ever had, when doctors were going through the question of, did you have a normal pregnancy, did you this, did you that, whatever, they all have always indicated that would have had nothing to do with it. So I have to believe that, right? The other thing that happened, also either in my first trimester or at the very beginning of my second trimester, I fell flat on my back, like a really hard, just slid out from under myself on some snow or ice, and just landed flat on my back, knocked the wind out. But again, not likely to have caused any issues. And then another thing that I've at times entertained as a question is, what about all the times that I, early in my pregnancy, when I was having a hard time, cried until I vomited multiple, like that happened multiple times. And I'm like, what if that, is that something that could have caused anything? No, probably not. So my point is, in reality, yeah, I kind of sort of questioned at times these few isolated incidents. But at the same time, I really never given it, I never did dwell on it. These were all just passing queries in my brain. It was, because you have to at some point, because people ask questions like this, and you go, I don't know, did I? So, it comes up like that. But for the most part, since I always knew this has been from the get-go, there's a reason, there's an explanation. I never carried any guilt about it, or worried too much that it was something that I did. I just think things are the way they are supposed to be. And that's kind of where I live. So that is the answer to the question, how did I feel when Jessica got her diagnosis? I felt brief relief. If you're interested in how many diagnoses Jessica has and you haven't seen our video, I'll put a link to it above. I have a video about what are her diagnoses and how many does she have. And I go through her multiple diagnoses in that video. And if you have any questions about any of this, please feel free to comment below, and we will either answer in the comments, or we will keep your question to do another Q&A if it needs to be an involved answer. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you guys. See you soon.